Jackie Hoffman, like, as a human and not just as a crazy character actress doing, like, whatever people...
Agreed. She's just so very...
Okay, I'm ready.
On the Dallas Opera Network, you're listening to Opera Box Score.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it's Opera Box Score. I'm your host, George Cederquist, joined on America's Talk radio show about opera by Oliver Camacho, Matt Cummings, Weston Williams, and Ashlee Hardgrave. All right, this week, we go inside the huddle with conductor Alexandra Enyart to discuss her new role on the Artistic Advisory Council of the American Opera Project, about being the go-to conductor for Laura Kaminsky's opera As One, and explaining the great banjo wars of 2020. And then in Chalk Talk, the jig is up for German music critic Andreas Laska. Middle-class artist has blown the case wide open. Is the pokey next for Laska? Plus, the 2-minute drill, Zachary James, newest star of the Dallas Opera Network. Will he really take the tiara from the Fab Five of the OBS? We'll see about that. Hey, look, we tape our show every week, every Monday night here in Chicago. You can take the show out of Chicago, but you can't take Chicago out of the show. How do you like these apples, Dallas? 5 degrees.
Snow. There was like a pile up yesterday, right? On the streets of Texas.
There was a gnarly accident in Fort Worth. Yeah, that was not great.
It is cold everywhere in the U.S. right now. To all of our international
everywhere.
listeners, please send hand warmers, blankets, whatever you can. This little Alabama boy is very cold.
You're so little.
So little.
The minor leagues have completely realigned their 120 team structure, and
So they're like a chaotic neutral now.
Exactly. I am working on
that was just for Weston.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much.
Of this, I'm going to make a chart that divides up all of America's opera companies into a farm team system complete with logos.
Oh my.
How much time do you have?
I think you've been in quarantine for too long, and we need to help you out. We need to shave off that beard and just
time to take a banjo.
Give you something to do.
Oliver Camacho, Australian Open finally here, yes or no?
It's here. We're actually in the second week. The championship is this weekend. Something really cute happened in the state of Victoria. They had a little isolated outbreak of COVID. So the state is on a 5-day so-called circuit breaker lockdown. So fans are no longer allowed in the stadium. They will be able to return for the semifinal round, but they're taking a 5-day break from fans. That's how serious Australia takes it. They're doing really great over there, COVID-wise. A little cute
What's
little
that
outbreak. Like? I have to say, for those of you who are following the Australian Open and were frustrated that you could not find one of the round of 16 matches between Matteo Berrettini, my husband, and Stefanos Tsitsipas, my other husband. I spent all morning long scrolling through or scrubbing through my recording because, it happens in a different time zone, like it's upside down, other hemisphere. And so it's like 8 hours of tape. And I'm trying to get to this match and I couldn't find it. It's like, damn it, my recording ran out before the match happened because there's so many matches.
Oh no.
And so
buddy.
I tried to watch it again this morning on the rebroadcast and I still couldn't find it. It turns out, because I don't like to read the news during the Australian Open because I don't want to see the results because that's what you'll see right away.
Right.
The Olympics contract.
Matteo walked over. He withdrew from the match. So
Oh.
I'm happy about that because I don't want to see my two loves.
Don't want to see your boys fight.
I know.
So Oliver's bummed out. Ashlee, you're not bummed out about the Bears right now.
I mean, in general, yes, but for their most recent hire, no. I'm very excited about it. So Sean Desai has kind of been like waddling in obscurity in like the lower levels of the coaching staff, but Matt Nagy has just hired him to be the defensive coordinator for the Bears. He's believed to be the first Indian American coordinator in the NFL. So this is a great promotion. Congratulations, Sean Desai.
Awesome. All right. Let us talk some opera.
Huddle up. Let's go inside the huddle.
I'm so thrilled to welcome back our friend and our guest for today, conductor Alexandra Enyart, who is from the famous lost episode of Opera Box Score back when we were recording at WNUR. And our guest, interview guest, was Jake Heggie. That is an episode that is just lost to the ether, but it was such a great show. And we also were able to talk to Maria Callas that day.
Yeah. Pavarotti.
Caruso.
Caruso was there. Franco Corelli.
Certainly commemorated in our hearts, even if it can't have been shared with our listeners.
Such a great show that's now no longer available, but we still have Alexandra, and thank you for coming back. And I promise we won't lose this one now that we're on Dallas Opera Net. We've got our poop together now. So,
well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So, your name came up last week from the press release of the American Opera Project, which is a council of, I guess, artistic advisors who include Mark Campbell and isn't Anthony Roth Costanzo on that?
Yeah, it's a big group. It's a really exciting panel of different people. It's called the Artistic Advisory Council. So it's a really exciting, I'm honored. It's a huge privilege to be a part of it. It's still kind of a surprise when I received the invitation. I was like, oh, this must be to the wrong person, but
I moved. Am I getting somebody else's mail?
Yeah, what's happening? Yeah, exactly. But it was, but I'm thrilled to get to be a part of it. And I think a lot of it has to do with my connection to As One, but also having done, works like Patience and Sarah with American Opera Projects, having commissioned that. It's amazing how this is an organization that's been around such a long time to get to have worked on different pieces that are out there because of them. And then to get to be a part of that, it's a huge honor and a privilege. So I'm just thrilled.
Well, can you just give us like the elevator speech about what is American Opera Project? And then I understand there's some breaking news about your participation.
So American Opera Project, I guess in its shortest form, I would say that from my perspective, there are two major unifying forces for opera in America, Opera America and the American Opera Project, that really bring different people together all around the country and are looking for ways to innovate and bring the art in, moving it forward. And American Opera Project does a lot in contemporary opera and contemporary works. And so that is that sort of work to bring the forefront of contemporary opera basically in a unified way to be progressing the art. It's such a powerful thing to get to be involved with, and exactly the sort of organization that I'm really interested in and have actually, if I was going to be involved in an opera organization, that certainly is one that meshes with me. I would be less of a good fit for other organizations, just based on my own resume. So thrilled to get to be involved with one that I align with.
So you have now this is the fairly new position for you, but I believe you right before you came on the line with us, we have some breaking news because you had your first official meeting, as it were. I believe that's correct.
You received your pin. Your
exactly.
Yeah.
You got
exactly.
the
American Opera projector.
That's exactly. You get the whole thing, and you can now go and you can get an American Opera Project's face mask if you want to go ahead and get that, so that you can be ready. Those are real, so
amazing.
Absolutely, go ahead and do that. But so we had a meeting regarding the. They have a biannual training program, Composers in the Voice. It's a 2-year fellowship, and it's centered around learning to compose for the operatic voice and writing for the operatic stage for composers and librettists. And it's had, it's such a special, important piece of what American Opera Project does. But one of the very first things that we did is to take a look at this long-running process that's been happening and trying to look for opportunities to raise awareness and to help create diversity of applicants and diversify in so many different ways. and then just also the efficiency of like the selection process and working through those different aspects. So we all get in this call and just start talking about, we look at the system that's already there, how things already are in place, and then just kind of throw out some ideas based on things that we've done. Just to give, different insights and things like that. Things that come up are, should there be application fees? Should there be, it's biannual right now where it's like a class and then another class and then another class. Should they overlap? Should they, and so it's just going in and having basically sessions to talk about and to throw lots of different ideas from what we've had out there. And that's been what it is so far. And then, it's pretty exciting to me to get to be involved in that way. And then it'll be really interesting to see how that all synthesizes and then turns into whatever it turns into, and see how all those pieces get picked up.
Change the very face of American opera. The ultimate goal is world domination, I'm sure.
At least American domination.
Yes. You got to start somewhere.
So, it's such a thing is you try to connect. I try to connect all these different people. And of course, one of the things that's interesting about coronavirus and the coronavirus time, of course, is that we're both very disconnected and very connected in a different way. And so I think that there's a real opportunity right now for organizations of all kinds to rethink how they're doing things and see where are connections that we've never had that are suddenly here, instead of, what connections are we missing? I think a lot of the connections we're missing will come back, but these chances to find the new ones may never be as flexible as they are right now.
Well, I think the circumstance that we're in right now also is highlighting how many creators actually go into making opera, and we are seeing new talents come to rise to the top because of their very specific skill that they might have. And we just interviewed Jonathan McCullough a couple weeks ago, who had to direct himself and film himself in David T. Little's Soldier Songs, and so yes, he's the star of the show, but he really is like, he's everything. He's
the star of the show.
Yeah,
he arranged all the burnt toast on that set. So
yeah, I mean, people are being asked to do an incredible amount right now and figuring out what they're doing and how they're doing it, and all these different stretching and things like that. And for me, unfortunately, one of the things that I don't love is having had to learn how to make a click track. It's a skill I would gladly give back.
We hate it.
I think most singers would agree with you about that.
Here's this. It's horrible. Enjoy.
But one thing that hasn't really changed in coronavirus is that you are going to get a chance to be performing in Opera Orlando a little bit later this year with a work that you know very well. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, so I'll be heading to Opera Orlando to conduct As One. Fantastic cast. It's Lisa Quagliata and Michael Kelly, both of whom I've worked with before, but never in the same show. So it's really exciting to get to do it with them together and to see how that makes their Hannah a different character. In As One, the two singers play one character. It's a transgender narrative with a before and an after lens through it. So just for anyone who doesn't know the opera very well, one of the things that I, as a listener to things, always try not to do that I would hear is just talking about the show without any reference or any context, because I totally forget sometimes that, like, I've done this show so many times now, but if it's totally new, I don't want to end up being that person that I used to listen to and say, who knows what you're even talking about?
We just say like, oh, we talk about, Renee,
It's like all the weird obscure operas that I reference that no one else knows, especially Oliver. He criticizes me for it on the air, and I cry,
So can you tell us about how this production is pandemic safe? I mean, it already is a pandemic safe opera in essence because of how small the cast is. It's a string quartet and two singers and the conductor.
That's right. So with a grand total of so few people, I'm not sure what the audience is going to be or how that's going to look. And
It's
I
Florida.
I
It'll
wish
be
I could speak to
alligators
it. Yeah, it'll be what it is exactly. But then on our part, I'm sure there will be a lot of these productions are just creating distance. And the good thing about as one and conducting as one is that I have done it all over the stage in terms of how close or far away you are from any other human being on stage.
Right.
And sometimes, I mean, it's the only show that I've done where I've been backwards to the singers, where I was conducting to a video camera, which is then put on monitors, and so it's like my back to it. And so I'm sure that there will be a way that we find all that combined. But I actually just don't have so many answers right now today on exactly what that's going to look like. It's happening in May, so it'll be interesting to see what the world is. Yeah, hopefully we'll be a little farther down the road. But I'm excited to do it. The one thing that's funny about having done S1 a bunch of times is that now every single time I've been contracted to do it, I have received less and less orchestra time. Because it's very funny. It's like the more I do it, everyone's like, all right, well, can you do it in like half a rehearsal? You're like, okay, let's try it.
He already knows it. It's fine.
We'll try it. Why not? So I the last time I did it, I said it'll be my fastest rehearsal process from orchestra to performance, and I've said that now 5 times.
Well, so
it'll be my fastest again.
We should credit Laura Kaminsky, the composer. Now that you know the score so well, do you know, like, can you just jump into rehearsal and like get right to the part? Like, you guys are gonna have problems with this, so let's rehearse this.
It is interesting because when I was learning opera conducting, one or many of my teachers would bring their own scores, and I was like, why would you possibly need to bring your own or bring their own parts? They would bring parts for the orchestra, and I was like, why would you possibly need to bring your parts? But now I wish I had parts for S1 so that I could just show up and be like, here's exactly how I do this. It's written in the part. This is it.
Maybe for the next production.
Yeah, exactly.
When you have 1 hour to perform.
Exactly. It's funny. I know the first time we do it is live. Here we go.
I've had that exact nightmare. It's the worst.
Impromptu. It's pop-up as one.
Before Australia, though, I wondered if it was a show I would ever feel comfortable doing, because it's a hard show, and I was like, am I going to feel scared every time I perform? Am I going to feel anxious every time? But then in Australia, we did it 10 times, and by the end of it, I was like, all right, it's fine, it happened. So.
And you have like a little speaking partner, right? You're always like the teacher or something.
I do, yeah. It's honestly the most stressful part of the entire show. Yeah, because you have to get up and like you leave the ensemble, and then you have to come back. And for some reason, I'm always like, all right, if anything happened and anyone's off in these bars, like I have to look down and then find where everything is. So what I always do is I point there's one theme in the second violin, and I tell everyone I'm going to start conducting on this bar, and it's whenever the second violin player plays, and even if they play it in entirely the wrong place, the second I move, we're on this bar. This is where we are.
Gotta have an exit plan for new music. That's
gotta do it. You gotta have a lot of group cues.
It's the emergency plan.
Exactly. So the pandemic has, sort of showed us a lot of the limitations of the way we've done things. It showed us some new ways to do things. And I hear that you've put together a really interesting project during the pandemic that's called Witness. And I would love to have you tell our listeners a little more about that.
Yeah, so Witness is very different from anything I've done, in that it is not conducting. It is me playing the banjo and singing about the woes of my life. So it was through the Turn the Spotlight Fellowship, where we're paired with different mentors, and mine was Lydia Yankovskaya, the music director of Chicago Opera Theater. Yeah, fantastic. And so we got to work and basically started talking about what do I want to do, what sort of projects, and I would circle around these different ideas and things like that. But one of the things that I have not explored, and as a creator or as a person, is really, in a way, my own voice just kind of untempered, because obviously through conducting, it's being a conductor is like being a curator at a museum.
Right.
People have put together beautiful paintings, and there are so many talents, and the singers are there, and the performers are there, and everyone has put this. Everything is beautiful, and then you hang it on a wall, and you put a light on it, and you say, "Look, I've done a thing."
Yeah.
So, but Witness getting to write. So I wrote a series of banjo songs. And I put together this 55-minute kind of song cycle, kind of album, kind of. It has a narrative, kind of, but it's an interesting exploration of my identity and my being trans and my journey and experiences. And I thought it seemed to resonate with everyone who saw it. It was performed by Third Eye Theater Ensemble with a premiere with Rose Freeman. So I feel super positive about it, but it's something where, of course, it's so personal to me that, it's certainly something that if you're interested in that, I would happily recommend looking out for it. We have it all recorded, and it should be coming out as an album, but I don't have an exact time on that yet, unfortunately. So it will be an album coming sometime this year, hopefully sooner than later. But
okay, so
we're not going to have a release date.
We're not going to find the piano vocal or the banjo vocal score for other artists to perform, because like if it is this type of project, maybe it's something that lives and is performed by other people.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to see it done. I mean, I would be thrilled if that were to happen. But I don't know what that would look like. It's such an unnotated piece, and there are pieces of improv in it and all this, and it's such a personal journey. But at the
there's
same
that one
time,
part of the show where you have to be the teacher and then come back and find the second violin line.
That's right.
Very
that's
specific.
Right. And then you come back, and then you're back in it. So it was. But yeah, it was great to have the time to explore it, and it was one of those things where obviously, I was booked for the entire year. And I was like, oh, I have no time at all. And then all of a sudden, everything got canceled all at once. And so I was sitting at home all day long, all the time. And my wife is a music therapist at Northwestern Hospital. So, of course, she was still entirely busy, probably busier than ever, as she was going in and working directly with COVID patients. And so here she is doing all these things, being a frontline healthcare worker. And I am home with a banjo by myself, and all I do all day is I would sit and I would play the banjo for like 8 hours a day and write songs. And I started playing banjo 8 hours a day in the first place because she also had a banjo, and I wanted to be so much better than her that she could never catch up to me again.
Some of us just baked sourdough bread, and here you are
having banjo fights with your wife. Can you tell us before we have to end this interview a little bit about working with Lydia, because we just love her so much and we want to hear nice things about her. If you have nothing nice to say, then you are free fantastic.
To go. Of course, yeah. I mean, Lydia is hard not to look at her and say that is a powerful force in opera, in the world, just in everything that she does. And having her in your corner and on your side, it's really powerful. And certainly the big thing that I struggled with in creating this piece that she really helped me find and do was kind of even having the confidence to be like, I'm allowed to talk about myself, I'm allowed to tell my own story, I'm allowed to have this space also. Like, yes, it's different, but there's so much that we get sucked into this idea of professionalism, and we get sucked into this idea of like, if I have anything beyond this really narrow box, then somehow I'll look weaker. And I think that the gift that her mentorship gave me was really giving me the confidence to be like, no, everything that I do in any way makes me stronger when I get back on the podium, because I'm a human, and hopefully everyone who's coming to art is, but It's a difficult lesson to learn because we spend a lot of time learning that we're supposed to do one thing. It was very valuable to have someone be like, no, you really can do other things, and it's not not only not bad, it's good.
Alexandra, Enyart, we can't wait for everything to come back to normal in Chicago, because you work so much in Chicago, and we're not seeing it right now. But we will look out for the Orlando as one. Good luck with that, and keep us up to date with American Opera Project.
Thank you. I definitely will.
Chalk Talk on Opera Box Score.
It's Opera Box Score. I still can't watch college sports, so I have no idea what's happening in college basketball right now. I'm very content with my Premier League. I'm content with my Red Wings currently tied with the Blackhawks as we speak, 2-2 in the third period. Ashlee, can you stomach college sports right now?
I sure can, because the Arkansas Razorbacks are in the top 25. It's time for Arkansas sports that are good. It's very exciting. So they actually beat the Missouri Tigers on Missouri's court this weekend after getting like creamed earlier in the season. So they're getting ready to like finish strong at the end of their season. So this is very exciting. Arkansas basketball is always better than Arkansas football. So this is a very, very exciting time for anybody in, the 2.5 million people in that state wearing red. So go Hogs.
When he's not busy defending himself against bogus legal claims, Zach Finkelstein is kicking butt and taking names in the investigative journalism of Operaland. Weston, can you set up this story for
Yes.
us?
So, this story broke on middleclassartist.com. And basically what it found was there's a German critic named Andreas Lasker who he works for Das Opernglas und Res Musica, or at least formerly
He did.
Yeah,
He
past
did,
tense.
which is a little bit of a spoiler for you. But apparently over the past year at least, he has made a habit of reaching out to usually young American women in the early stages of their career, identifies himself as a German journalist of some kind, asks for an interview, and then never leaves them alone until they block him. And it's very, very, it's like this pattern, this almost like this stalkery pattern of like, he sets it up like he's someone very important, which he does have some power as a critic. He offers to give them German lessons. He insists frequently on them speaking German with him, even though it's not their most comfortable language.
Claiming he doesn't speak English.
Claiming he doesn't speak English, even though he almost certainly does. And there was one point where he even claimed he didn't speak French with someone who's more comfortable speaking French, and he absolutely does speak French. And it's very, 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 very creepy.
Yeah,
is what it is.
He's approached at least 73 women on social media with these so-called requests for interviews that never turn into interviews.
Yeah.
Some singers have tried to actually give him quotes that he never really seemed particularly interested in. There never was any sort of a COVID piece about what it's like to be a young singer in COVID time. It's written in German with quotes from all these young singers, nor was one ever requested or authorized by either of these publications that he represented himself as working for.
And this stalking, let's call it what it is, has even before the pandemic has always been online, or has it ever been in person, or do we know?
There's been a little bit in person. It's mostly online because, again, he does seem to target American women specifically, and he is based in Germany. But there is at least one instance where he initially made contact with a woman in Germany when she was there, and there were a few times where he encountered them at performances. Because, as we all know, if you're an American singer, going to Germany is a kind of a goal if you're young, because that's the place where you can learn, you can really grind, you can really make it essentially in Germany. And which is why it's so sinister to me that someone who has the power to literally make or break your career early on, to give you a positive
Seemingly.
review in Germany. It's just so bad. I mean, I think that there's a lot in like the weird parasocial sort of relationship between critics and performers. You'll find that professionals, they have to go to as many shows as possible. They start thinking of performers as their friends, as closer than friends. And people like this can really manipulate that into something really, really sinister, even though that relationship is there's always that inherent power dynamic. It's go ahead, man.
I'd say it goes even further than that, because there is when you are trying to make a career as a young freelancer, you don't want to piss anyone off. You don't
really
want to make enemies, especially not someone who represents himself as having influence and power to blacklist you or speak negatively about you, which it's totally conceivable that a critic would have that kind of power.
All right, so Weston, you set it up for us. Thank you for that. Matt, you've given your hot take. Ashlee, knock it down. What gives?
This is what we came here for, is Ashlee's rant on this one.
I know. I promise it's not just that they want me to yell at people. I do other things. It's just that I get really good at yelling at people, I guess.
You are really good at it. It's true.
Thank you. I will take that compliment. I can't. It's unbelievable. And yet it's believable. Why are men? Why are men? Just why? Okay, not really. Kind of. Not all men, but this man makes me mad at lots of men, except for the 4 that I see on my screen right now. And any of you that are listening who don't do the caca that this guy did. Okay, so, all right. What is so triggering for me about this story, it's a story that feels so deeply personal and specific to this industry, where young artists are like chomping at the bit to receive even a table scrap of attention. Like Matt mentioned, these young artists, they lower and they humble and they break themselves down to the point that they are in a position of humility with anybody that they come in contact with. So anybody that looks like they could help their career, you are doing a lot of hindquarters kissing, because you want these people to like you so much. And perhaps it is something that's so specific to this industry, but it's a lot more. If you adjust slightly, some of the knobs in this narrative and this storyline, you've got an experience that every American woman I know over the age of 28 has had more than once in her life. It's the guy that pays too much attention to her in the bar. It's the supervisor at her first internship. It's that weird friend of your dad's when you're a teenager that looks at you a little bit too long. It's the boss who you deeply admire and you need approval from for a promotion. It is all about power. It's all about precedent. And it's all about that feminine mystique and culture. You're expected to listen. You're expected to smile. You're supposed to laugh off anything that feels uncomfortable, even if you know it's wrong, as just playful talk. I would encourage folks to go and check out this article, but I do want to slap a little bit of a content and a trigger warning on it for my female identifying listeners, because it's really rough, but it's important reading, I think, but just know that going into it. And so these women have, basically it's a game. You have to play that game and be humble and smile because they have something that you want, or you've been led to believe that they have something that you want. But the second that she dares to say that she's uncomfortable by anything that this person or any of these men in those situations has said, it's her that's the a-hole. It's her that's the one that's being unreasonable. And then comes the gaslighting, where like, oh, what? I didn't say that, or I did, or, oh, you took it the wrong way. So the thing that really, the phrase that got to me in looking at some of these exchanges, it was the use of the phrase, did I hurt you? Mm-hmm. Because he's doing it on purpose.
He did it multiple times, that specific quote.
He did it multiple times, and let me tell you why. He's working those words carefully. He's doing two things. He's inviting his nervous prey to immediately, like, say no to avoid confrontation and, like, break the thickness that's in the air. But he's also trying to gaslight, because if you say, did I hurt you? The instinct is like, hurt often implies physical rather than emotional injury. So he's automatically setting them up to believe, oh, well, if he's not physically like hurting my arm or kicking my leg, then I'm fine. So he's doing that as a way for his victims, and I'm going to call them victims. He's doing that as a way to automatically absolve himself for his behavior. It's like the slickest kind of predatory behavior, because it's almost all based in word, and it's almost all based in the humility of what a young artist is looking for, which is approval from somebody who presents himself as somebody that's important in the industry. I am unwilling to absolve him for this behavior. I don't think anybody else is. He's finally not being absolved anymore.
Like any well-made play, this was both utterly surprising and totally inevitable. Right? Those are the two key points of any drama. Utterly surprising that the number of women that were attacked online is approaching 100. That is surprising, and totally inevitable that somebody like this would abuse their position within this field and do the sort of damage that he did. The article is on middleclassartist.com. You can get to that through our website, operaboxscore.com.
This just in, the 2-minute drill.
All right, listen up. Here's everything you need to know about what happened in Operaland this week.
This week's draft pick, Dallas Opera's Director of Artistic Administration, has also been named as the Chief Artistic Officer for Santa Fe, replacing Alexandra Neef. David Lomelí will continue as a consultant role for Dallas, and he will also maintain his position as a casting consultant for the Bavarian State Opera.
Governor Andrew Cuomo announced the launch of New York Pops Up, a festival featuring hundreds of pop-up performances, many of which are free of charge and all open to the public, that will intersect with the daily lives of New Yorkers. Friend of the show Anthony Roth Costanzo is the operatic talent tapped to participate in Cuomo's campaign to bring the performing arts back.
Broadway and opera star and friend of the show, Zachary James, will host the best of Broadway and beyond in his new weekly online talk show, What Happened Was. The new show is part of the Dallas Opera Network and will air online every Friday. What Happened Was will discuss the breakthrough moments of some of the most well-known and beloved artists of Broadway, dance, opera, film, and television. But so far, no mention of opera podcasters.
British musicians are starting to feel the pain of Brexit after articles in The Guardian and the Arts Desk featured op-eds by performers caught up in the red tape of a post-EU Britain. We've learned that contracts have to be renegotiated, new visas and permit costs have to come out of the performers' pockets, and new legal restrictions on length of stay have made it difficult to impossible to carry on with business as usual. This is on top of the pain COVID restrictions and lost income have caused. In other news, the Pope actually takes communion and believes in transubstantiation.
Soprano Joyce L. Corey has joined the UK's Peace and Prosperity Trust, an organization that raises awareness and funds for charitable projects in the Middle East and for its young artists. The Canadian-Lebanese soprano joins Richard Bonning, Joseph Kaleha, and Dennis O'Neill as patrons of the trust, whose royal patron is His Royal Highness the Duke of Gloucester.
5 years ago, Natalie Warmerdam, along with 2 other women, were murdered in a spree that is now considered one of the worst cases of domestic violence in Canadian history. In his grief, baritone Joshua Hopkins, who is Warmerdam's brother, conceived of the song cycle Songs for Murdered Sisters, with music by Jake Heggie, set to poems by Margaret Atwood. Songs for Murdered Sisters premieres on Marquee TV this week and is available to stream until March 19th.
All right, this week's Yellow Cards.
Spain. Anita Rashvelishvili will give a recital at Bilbao Opera on February 27th.
Poland. The Polish National Opera has announced that it will be open by the end of February with a new schedule for March and April.
Austria. A COVID outbreak has forced the postponement and 2 cast changes of the premiere of Carmen at the Vienna State Opera.
This week's Red Cards.
The Netherlands. The Royal Concertgebouw has canceled the 2021 Mahler Festival.
Germany. A bad week for Mahler. Leipzig Gewandhaus Orchestra has postponed their Mahler Festival to 2023, and Dresden Semperoper has canceled rehearsals for Strauss's Ein Heldenleben.
Monaco. Sir Bryn Terfel's recital at Opera Monte Carlo has been cancelled.
On the disabled list, Charles Castronovo was hospitalized due to COVID-19 earlier this month. We wish him a speedy recovery. The American tenor, who is married to soprano Ekaterina Siorina, has been replaced by Piotr Bachala in the Yellow Card production of Carmen in Vienna.
Conductor Zubin Mehta has been hospitalized after a performance of Salome in Milan. Doctors have prescribed rest, and La Scala hopes he will be back to work by the end of the week.
Exit stage right. Czech soprano Libusha Domaninska has died at age 96. She was known for her work as a company member at Prague National Opera, performing over 50 roles with the company.
American soprano Margaret Roberts, known on stage as Margherita Roberti, has died at the age of 95. Roberts was known for her interpretations of Verdi heroines across Italy and the United States.
Italian director Stefano Mazzonis di Pralavera has died at the age of 72. Since 1983, his opera productions were performed at a number of important festivals and opera houses in Italy. He has also served as general and artistic director of Royal Opera Liège since 2007.
And on this day, February 15th, it was the first performance of Lully's last opera Armide in Paris. In 1732 was the first performance of Handel's Sosarme in London. In 1845, it was the first performance of Verdi's opera Giovanna d'Arco at La Scala. In 1858, Polish-American soprano Marcela Sembrich was born. In 1884, it was the premiere of Tchaikovsky's Mazeppa in Moscow. In 1896, Argentinian soprano Ina Spani was born. In 1926, it was the birth of American baritone Raymond Wolanski. And one for Weston in 1965, the first performance of B.A. Zimmermann's opera Die Soldaten at the Stadische Oper in Köln.
That's your 2-minute drill. I'd like to be back at English National Opera in the mid-90s, which is when I saw
Don't we all?
Soldaten. It was this. Die Soldaten was one of the first operas that I ever saw. And I think it was in this production, it had a number of strippers in it. And it was definitely the first time I think I ever saw naked women in the
Scandalo.
And it was the last time as well.
And now he has a career in opera.
Oh my gosh, so many people on the disabled list and exiting stage right.
Yeah.
It feels like we're in the dead of winter here, you know. Charles Castronovo.
He's not dead. Don't say it like that.
He's just in the hospital. Not to say
as of right now,
hospital,
anyways.
but
He's been in the hospital for a while now. There hasn't been much of an update in the past week or so, but we do wish him a speedy recovery.
We love him so much.
Yeah.
He's such a gorgeous singer. He killed me singing Lenski here in
that
Chicago.
was fantastic.
And his wife is Ekaterina Surina, who she's Russian, so he gets extra Russian diction coaching.
Yeah, and I have it on good
me.
authority that his Russian was pretty great.
Yeah.
Duh.
I mean, the way that Carmen production is being delayed in Vienna, I mean, like, hey, maybe he'll be back in fighting form by the time that thing actually goes up.
But best wishes go to him.
Yeah, well, we also love Zachary James, of course, friend of the show, and now he's got his own show.
When I saw the title for this show, I kept thinking of Jason Sudeikis doing that dance. What's up with that?
What up with that?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Jason Sudeikis will show up on this show. You never know.
It's true.
The list could go on and on.
I have to
Mike
say,
Tomlin.
I have to say, as the audio video editor for this show, I'm already incredibly jealous of his production value already. I was like, what are you not good at, Zach? Calm down, leave some for the rest of us.
It's easily going to be the best show on the Dallas Opera Network, so we'll have to get rid of him.
Second best show on Dallas Opera Network. All right.
He doesn't have Ashley's rants, so
Yeah, Zach, I'm watching you.
Zach, you're welcome back anytime.
Here's what we're gonna.
We love you. We think you're fabulous, but you just can't get too good. We need to share the top. Share the top.
Here's how we're gonna. When we're all back in person, we're gonna settle it by his crew and us go head to head in a flag football game.
I don't know if I want to take that. I don't know if I want to take up.
Are you kidding me?
he is my height.
Zachary James. Let me get out the Sharpie.
George,
Zachary
he's like
James.
two of you.
No, you haven't. I got some speed.
Imagine me, but stronger.
He played Lurch on Broadway. Lurch.
Lurch is slow. Zachary James, you're slow on the gridiron.
You wouldn't be saying that if you watched the clip of him dancing at the end of the show.
That's true.
He's very spry.
Baby can move.
Oh, Brexit. Will we never be free of you?
It's every time one of these Brexit stories comes out, it's like, wow, if only this had been totally foreseeable. Oh, wait. Everyone said this at the time, that like any kind of promise of like less bureaucracy was an obvious lie.
Yeah.
And here we are.
It's like Florida gets to vote and only Florida on U.S. employment laws. Like, that's what this is. That's what this is.
Sick time? What's that? Everyone just go get COVID.
Yeah, that's it. It really is disappointing, but I think it is interesting to like learn like how specifically this is affecting opera in ways that are very like direct. Like specifically, I was surprised by the fact that some rehearsal periods have had to be shortened because the amount of time for the visa is so short. They can't rehearse as much. The visa fees, of course, were something that I think was very predictable and something I would expect. But
my favorite Kafkaesque moment about the visa fees is that since the embassies and consulates are only open 1 day a week, you have to pay the expedited visa fee, which is 4 times the regular visa fee. And these contracts don't pay the kind of money where you can just be like, well, let me just quadruple my expenses. What does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, Zach Finkelstein lays this out in Middle Class Artists back in the before times.
The original, the Facebook post.
Yeah, but I mean,
before he was busting heads.
As singers, we put in a lot of our own money up front for coachings, for booking flights, for booking hotels. You expect to get paid, and you expect to be able to pay yourself back, but there's a lot of front end costs for us who are trying to make it. Even the pros, even people like Christine Gerke who come to Chicago, she has to find an apartment, before she starts rehearsals,
And also, like, England is, right there next to the hotbed of opera that is continental Europe, and like that's your career. If you were in school in England, in Britain, to become an opera singer, you are expecting to jump from country to country to country to country with no breaks. That's what you're expecting. And all of a sudden, there's all these roadblocks. Just another thing that especially non-established artists have to do.
It's a channel block.
That's it. That's the joke.
They just drop the
flood the channel.
You're right, Matt. It's not like anybody didn't see this coming. It'll be really interesting to see in 2 or 3 seasons into the after times how insular the UK opera scene gets.
Well,
it'll be really interesting to see how many more singers decide to stay local.
And just because it was such a, they had bigger problems with negotiating the Brexit exit, the actual, are we going to have a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland? Will there be a war? So, the contract of freelance musicians, didn't make it high enough on the list to really be addressed. So I'm sure that we're going to continue to find other blind spots.
Exactly.
Where it's just going to cause huge problems for the people who don't have, the resources or the talent to deal with that on top of what their jobs actually are.
And if British singers and British opera artists are really forced to rely on England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland for their careers, is that opera ecosystem going to be able to support them? I mean, the U.S. opera system can barely support the opera artists that are in this hemisphere.
I think barely support is generous, George.
Yeah.
They wave at them. They wave and say, keep it up. You're doing great. I have no money, but you're doing great.
All right, let's wrap this show up.
Good call. Bad call on Opera Box Score.
Good call, bad call to take us all home. I'll probably be cross-country skiing back to my house from the studio here. Oliver Camacho, you got a good call or a bad call for us?
I'm going to give you one of both. For the first time, I do have a bad call. Premier Opera, which is a company that produces bootlegs for sale, has been selling many unauthorized recordings of performances where the artists aren't compensated. This is a breaking story. I learned of it from our friend Mays of the Hazer, or Michael Mays, also on Dallas Opera Network. I'm sure he'll be talking more about this soon. But not great, especially in this time when so many singers have their intellectual property out there, and
Right.
that's the only way they're being heard, and they're not being compensated. That's not great. My good call, though, is something that I just kind of discovered by accident, and I hope to draw more attention to it because I think they're doing a great job. It's called the Divas in Drag Italian Opera Company, and it is a really beautiful collection of high production value videos of famous scenes from opera done in drag.
Amazing.
Check it out. They're lip syncing to professional recordings. So.
That is certainly a bad call. I totally agree with you, Oliver. Music should not be free. Matt Cummings.
I've also got a bad call this weekend. We did not even coordinate, but my bad call is just to, rub a little salt in the wound, the gaping wound that is the Metropolitan Opera. They have decided, apparently, to dedicate this week of their evening live streams to the works of Franco Zeffirelli, one of the whitest people alive.
That's peak white.
People dead.
When we are in the middle of Black History Month.
Or
And
like Blanco Zeffirelli.
there is
am I right?
literally... That's good. I like that.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's
Like,
funny.
You have literally one job to say that you're living up to Black History Month, and it is to showcase and honor the work of groundbreaking Black artists. Something the Met occasionally does try to pretend that they do, but I guess couldn't be bothered this week.
And before George cuts me off, along that line, Will Lieberman's new album, Dreams of a New Day, songs by Black composers, with pianist Paul Sanchez, has just come out to sort of like cosmically rebalance everything with the Met to something approaching social justice. It's a great album. It's really cool. Friend of the show. Check it out.
Thank you, Weston Williams. Ashlee Hardgrave.
Yes, Fort Worth Opera is producing an event that I want to give a little plug to. It's a Night of Black Excellence. It's going to be on February 21st. It's a live stream. The folks Afton Battle and all her people at Fort Worth have put together this really cool slate of folks that are both classical and non-classical artists. Some of the folks are local to the DFW area, and some of them are abroad. It's going to feature some folks like friends of the show Kenneth Overton and Russell Thomas, plus LaTanya Moore, Karen Slack. It's going to be February 21st. You can buy tickets at Fort Worth Opera's website.
Fantastic. I got a good call. My son and I finally finished watching the very end of The Mandalorian. That score is going to go down in the history books. This is Ludwig Göransson who wrote the score. I don't mean just the theme. The final music of the final episode is a string quintet fugue. It's brilliant. That's it for this week's edition of America's Talk Radio Show about opera. Our announcer's Norm Woodel. He's at normwoodel.com. On Facebook, search for Opera Box Score. On Twitter and Instagram, we're at Opera Box Score. Help us deepen the bench of listeners by liking and sharing our social media posts. Email us at operaboxscore@gmail.com. Subscribe to the podcast on Stitcher or just favorite our show on Apple Podcasts. The views and opinions expressed on Opera Box Score are solely those of the show's creative team. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of the accounts of this show without the express written consent of Opera Box Score is streng verboten. Na ja, das war nur ein Witz. Our creative consultant is Oliver Camacho. Our audio and video editor is Weston Williams. For our guest, Alexandra Enyart, and your co-hosts, Matt Cummings and Ashlee Hardgrave, I'm George Cederquist, asking you to continue the conversation about opera as you begin the year of the ox. We're back with an all-new show next week when countertenor Kiman Mura joins us inside the huddle. Plus, you get more opera headlines, more hot takes, more sub-zero temperatures. Join us.